well, let's move forward because I have this question that I very much like to ask you. And that question is something that I have been wondering for a long time, and I think that many of our friends also. Could you tell us who is your favorite superhero?
Well, my favorite character to write is the Punisher, and you had said that was your favorite as well, although he's not a superhero. Punisher's always been easiest for me to write for some reason. He reacts to things, and he reacts to things that are happening in a world we can relate to. I mean, you really can't imagine Batman getting into a fight at a fast food restaurant, but you can imagine the Punisher doing that because he's like us. You know, he's just a normal guy. He's not a billionaire playboy. He's not from another planet. You know, so he was always the easiest to write. But if we want to just talk superheroes, I mean, Batman and Robin, you just don't get better than Batman and Robin. I mean, I wrote them for 11 years, and there wasn't one time I didn't type Batman and Robin and not go, thank God. I am the luckiest person in the world. I get to write about Batman and Robin. How cool is that? It was, and there's not a moment that I didn't appreciate, you know, what I was doing and the opportunity I was given. So yeah, and I love Batman ever since I was a kid. I mean, you know, everybody does. He's the greatest comic book character of all time.
You could say that he is the greatest character. Obviously, not making less about Superman or Spider-Man, but he is actually. I believe it wholeheartedly that he is the best comic book character, at least for superheroes, you know. And some people, I do that like this every time I say, no, but Batman is not like a superhero because he doesn't have any powers.
No.
And I say like, really, really, that's your opinion. Have you read the thing? But well, it's opinions are opinions. But so we could say that your favorite superheroes, Batman and Robin, favorite character overall is the Punisher, and he's the one that you enjoy the most. Speaking about the devil, speaking about the Punisher, you did that comic book that we are seeing right now on the screen, the Punisher Batman crossover, because there was the other one, the Batman Punisher, that was made by Denny O'Neil.
Right.
That crossover, I have to say, it's my favorite crossover of all time, and I'm a huge fan of crossovers of any kind between superheroes and characters from comic books. But this had something very special. Those moments between the Punisher and the Joker, that scene, it's like the best scene ever. For me, at least, it was a very defining moment for the Punisher. He said, "I am not joking around. You are dead." That's it. That when I saw that, I couldn't believe it, because that is actually what he is. He doesn't forgive.
Right.
You did it, you'll die.
Right.
That exact moment for me was great, and all the interactions that we later saw with Batman, because those guys also hate each other. They were, everything was extraordinary from that crossover. My question here is, what was the origin of this comic book? Was it something that Marvel DC specifically asked you to do, or you pitched it, you suggested it? How was that process?
Well, I started pitching a Batman Punisher crossover like 2 years before this happened.
Oh my!
And it was precisely this story. I mean, I didn't change anything, and I kept pitching it. But Tom DeFalco was running Marvel at the time, and he kept saying, "Well, what's in it for Marvel?" And we kept trying to explain to him that Batman sells a lot more than the Punisher.
A lot,
yeah. The real question is, what's in it for Batman? You know, nothing. But I don't know how it eventually came to be. I know they just didn't listen to me. I think Denny probably went out to lunch with Don Daly. Don Daly was the editor on the Punisher, and Don Daly used to be Denny's assistant. And they probably ended up at a lunch together and talked it over, and then they talked Tom DeFalco into it. And I had done, you know, a lot of Punisher. I'd done Punisher Warzone. Johnny Romita Jr. very much wanted to be on this book, and I wanted to have him on it. And then they assigned Archie Goodwin as editor. And, you know, I love Denny, but Archie's always been my favorite editor. I idolize Archie. So it was just a dream come true. And like I said, I didn't really change the story. I wanted that scene where the Joker realizes, this is it. This guy's going to kill me. And the only way he can stall the Punisher is he goes into that sort of psychoanalysis where he explains, you're not like Batman, you're different. And he explains why they're different. And I remember talking about this with Denny. I said, this is the ultimate scene for me in that book, is the Joker psychoanalyzing Frank Castle and Batman. And then Denny looked at me and said, you really think a lot about this stuff.
That's my job.
I said, yeah, I do. I don't intuit a lot. I do a lot of hard thinking about these characters. And then, of course, the scene where there's the fight. They want to see Punisher and Batman fight. I said, Batman's going to clean the floor with Punisher. Yeah. I mean, there's no, because Punisher to me, I love the Punisher, tough guy. He's not a martial artist. He's a brawler. He'd be good in a bar fight, but against somebody that actually knows what they're doing, Batman's just going to beat him all the time. But Batman's so cool that he's like, yeah, I'll let you hit me once.
Yeah,
and that's all you're only going to get to hit me once.
That was one of the greatest scenes. The one with the punch.
Yeah,
it was a splash page. It was great, and I remember that you set up the scene with the Punisher having a couple of bullets in the shoulders.
Yeah.
And that also, well, I remember that when the obvious nerd debate about the fight came out with the friends, you say, oh, well, yeah, but the Punisher had the bullets in their arms and he was bleeding. Oh, well, yeah, but he never will defeat Batman. Still, it was like not so bad for Frank. He didn't was shown as somebody weak or that couldn't do anything. It was great. And let me tell you this. You made a lot of people, including me, say that Batman was a pussy. He said, Joker, run. I'll save your life. Go away. And I say, what the hell are you doing? And it was like an incredibly fun moment. Everybody said, come on, what's happening with Batman? Maybe he could have seen for the other side. It was a great moment then. And obviously, I'll thank you for it. It was a great crossover, well, it's the only one with Bruce Wayne actually, because the other one was with Azrael. Well, the Bat Azrael, or I don't remember how people used to call him.
We always called him Asbats, which kind of caught on.
Yeah, by then that was also great, but I mean, it was not Bruce Wayne. It was a very different thing, and all of that. I remember it vividly. And let me tell you a curious fact about the crossovers. I don't know why, really, but here in Mexico, they only publish the Denny O'Neil one, not yours.
Wow.
I don't know why, but obviously I have it, but it's the American version. But in Spanish, it never came out.
That's unusual.
Yeah, it was very unusual because during that time, one editorial was the one that was in charge of everything related to Marvel and DC, and they published everything. And when I say everything, I mean everything. And I really don't remember why they didn't put that specifically. But that is a great anecdote. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Now, my next question for you, Mr. Dixon, how many hours does Chuck Dixon dedicate to his writing profession every day? How does he work?
Well, I kind of think about it all the time. My wife always accuses me of my mind just wanders away. Actual writing, when I'm doing comics, the actual typing is maybe 6 hours a day, but a lot of that's interrupted by looking things up. And when I do a script, because you can do this on the computer, I'll include visual references. So if I'm asking the artist to draw something unusual, I'll find the picture on the internet and stick it in the script itself. So I spend some time doing that. But a writer's work never stops because you just keep making stuff up in your head all the time. I don't know how other writers work. Every writer is different, but I feel like I'm never going to catch up with all the stuff that I think up. The actual sitting there typing is probably maybe 4 to 6 hours a day.
Okay. And everything else is research, is checking out, it's making that your references are accurate for your penciler, for your artist, for everything.
Yeah, and more, with doing videos and doing social media and all, and that's all part of the job now.
Oh, well, okay, yeah.
So the time is divided up amongst other things other than writing. Whereas when I was on Conan, I was sitting there for 10 hours a day, just, going at it. Because I was young and lots of enthusiasm, and no distractions. So.
Come on. We are still young, Mr. Dixon. Don't say that.
Well, in my mind, I'm still 12. So.
That's something I can relate to. Yeah.
Yes, I'm sure you can.
Well, before we enter to the next one, it's fair to say, because you named a moment ago the artist, it's fair to say, I know that you have a great associate is Graham Nolan. It's one of your great associates. It's fair to say that he has been your best, not to damage the ego or to talk bad about the other artists, but I don't know, maybe he is your greatest partner in crime for comic books.
No, I've had a lot of great collaborators. I mean, actually, Gary Kwapis from Conan is my most frequent collaborator. I've done a lot more work with him actually than with Graham. But these people become your friends, and you like all the same stuff, and it's just easy to work. And I like working with Gary too, because they're brutally honest. If they don't like something, they tell you right away. So you don't have to think, oh, he's not telling me the truth, or whatever. I mean, it's right there in the open. But I've worked with so many amazing people, and I've gotten to work with a lot of my idols: Russ Heath, John Buscema, Joe Kubert. Guys that I read when I was younger and was a huge fan of. So I can't say that I've got a favorite collaborator, but you can kind of tell by the guys I go back to all the time.
Yeah. So that leads me to my next question, and this is it. What do you think is the most important element in comic book stories, in superhero stories, that gets people hooked on this hobby, sometimes for life? Because let's be honest, we are in this for life, some of us. And what do you think it's the element that gets you over there?
Well, superheroes are the ultimate wish fulfillment fantasy. They're strong, they're tough, they're brave. Nobody messes with them. They always win in the end. And when you're a kid reading these, kids are all about power, because kids have no power. There's always somebody telling you what to do. Your parents, your teacher, the bigger kids, your older siblings.
Yeah.
So you're like, well, if only I could tell them what to do. If only I could stay up as late as I wanted, and I don't want to go to school today. Nobody can make me. And so you see these costume characters, and they're doing everything they have power, the power that you want, and also they have this secret. The fact that they're so cool is a secret. And it's like, well, what if I was like the coolest guy in the world, but nobody knew it but me? So you see all these elements for a kid. And I still say, we see the comic characters grown up, and we see them in more adult situations and things like that. But, you have to remember, at the heart of it, these comic book characters created for children to read. And there's nothing wrong with that, because you can write sophisticated stories. I always try to do that. Sophisticated enough stories so that adults enjoy them and the kids enjoy them too, maybe for different reasons. But to me, that, boy, if only I could be Spider-Man, that kind of wish fulfillment. Okay. And for girls, it's, if I were a princess and everybody loved me.
Yeah, but that is something very, very true what you said about it. For example, it's obviously it's fair that many kind of people like comic books and superhero and everything, but it's obvious that they had their target audience. It's obvious.
I think it's the same for like monster characters too. When I was a kid, I wanted to be the Wolfman, because he had a secret that was to me was pretty cool. I turned into an animal once a month, and then everybody was afraid of it. And when you're a kid, you'd love it if everybody was afraid of you.
Yeah. It's that fantasy to be in secret. Yeah. Okay, yeah, but inside of me, I am like this, I am like that. Those elements, it was like an instructive manual for example, a character like He-Man. It's the same thing. It's a powerful person, and the secret identity. It's the same thing. And I believe that even the slogan was studied by a marketing group about the power. They say, I have the power. That is what the kids wanted to say.
Exactly.
And it's completely agree with you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that opinion with us. And that leads us to another question. We know that you currently are no longer associated with Marvel or DC, but you are still creating comic books. You are
Right.
still in that. You are still in the trenches.
Yeah.
Could you tell us about Arc Haven Comics? What is that? Can
Um,
you tell us?
yeah, Arkhaven is it's a free digital comic platform. If you go to arkhaven.com, you'll find Arctoons. And there's dozens and dozens and dozens of series running there with new episodes every week. We're doing, horror, humor, espionage, spy stories, detective stories, lots of superheroes, science fiction, almost anything you can imagine. I just launched a series called My Sister Suprema. It's about a little boy who dreams of being a superhero, and he performs an experiment that accidentally turns his big sister into a superhero. And it's a sort of a comedy superhero parody. I'm also doing Go Monster Go. It's kind of a 1960s hot rod monster movie, like a drive-in movie kind of thing. And then Something Big, which is a story about a heist after an alien invasion. Aliens have taken over the Earth, and this guy gets a gang together to steal from them. But I also contribute to a lot of other series on the site: Alt Hero Q, Avalon, Midnight's War, Silenciosa. It's allowing me to explore a lot of different genres. I'm my Radio Boy, which is the only comic book I've ever drawn, is up here in digital form. I did it in the 80s, and we digitized it and put it up. It's like a labor of love for me at this point. I'm really enjoying it. It's total creative freedom. And like I said, it's free. If you want to check it out, there's bound to be something here that you'll like.
How did you come up with this idea? It's why it's free. I can assume that you have certain elements about, for example, donations and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, I have my own Patreon account. The Arkhaven Patreon account is basically all mine that I use to pay my artists. Maybe someday I'll even pay myself. But but I keep coming up with new series. So instead of paying myself, I keep creating more stuff. And it wasn't me who came up with it. Vox Day came up with it. He created Arkhaven Comics. His idea was to basically go digital so we could go global, because he was frustrated with paper publication. Eventually these will be multilingual, because the program in which the words appear, the word balloons appear, is separate from the art. And so we can play with the word balloons and change them at will. And we're even talking about a feature where fans will be able to translate themselves, so that it'll be like a volunteer thing. So if you have a favorite comic on Arctoons, you'll be able to translate it into your language yourself. But it's very much a global reach effort. And I'm hearing from people all over the world about it, which is really cool. So we're not just limited to publishing in the United States.
That is very important, especially in these times when everybody it's but it's maybe not available for me, or it's not published in my country. I can assure you that there are many people that are still trying to discover something like this, or that they haven't discovered it yet. And it's a great effort. At least I am going to be sure to mention this a lot now that I know about it. And I can assure you that a lot of people from Mexico are going to be interested and see that you are still writing superhero stories and other kind of stories also.
Yeah, I'm busy. But yeah, I'm frustrated myself because I like to see comics from all over the world, and they're so hard to find here. They keep reprinting the same ones over and over again. Thanks to the internet, I'm able to go out and see other comics from other countries, but not in a digital format. Certainly not for free. So
yeah, certainly not for free, unless there are some sites, but obviously we never say, oh yeah, you should watch it or pirate them or whatever. That is never a good idea for many reasons. In reality, I'm seeing a lot of names. For example, here is your collaborator Gary Quaid.
Yeah. He wrote this sort of American Civil War horror story himself. A lot of friends, and we're opening it up to other independent producers too. In the future, you'll be seeing a lot of names you're familiar with. And we just got Joe Bennett. Marvel let Joe Bennett go, so he's working with us on 2 different series for Arctoons.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Witch Stalker and another thing called the Red Hornet. I've seen artwork and they're both gorgeous.
yeah. He's a great
Oh yeah,
artist. Yeah. And
yeah, he's
he was
terrific.
in Hulk, no? Immortal Hulk, I believe.
Yeah, big name there, but they let him go.
Yeah, but well, they let him go, and it was like a kind of the climate that is surrounding comic books right now. That is something that I actually wanted to ask you as
Yeah.
our final question for today, because again, I cannot thank you enough. Share your time with us. Share this particular moment and answering all of these questions for for us, for here, for ComiXmen, and for all the Mexican fans and other fans that hopefully are going to be watching this particular interview. This is what I want to discuss. Last July, a few months ago, a certain article went viral, and the title of the article was "Prolific Batman writer Chuck Dixon explained why manga is whipping the floor with American comics." When I saw that, I say, finally, somebody said something. We talk about that here in ComiXmen, because every Saturday we have a live stream with me and my other friends and the part of the crew and everything, and we said, you see, and it's by Chuck Dixon, and obviously we'll talk about you for a while. It was a section that we dedicated to this, and previous after that many others. And let me tell you that many news sites in Spanish covered it. The article was brutal. And my question with this is, could you please tell us, in your opinion, what happened with the comic book industry? What is the current state of the comic book industry? And well, we will very much like to hear that from a person like you about that.
Well, I mean, the comic book industry is basically DC and Marvel. I mean, they're the big two. And whatever they do affects the fortunes of all the other comic book publishers. And what they've done is they've gone way too political. They've focused in on a very narrow segment of the audience and left everybody else behind. They've forgotten the fact that you read comic books to forget about the real world, not to be reminded about the real world. And they've also, warped the characters into the image that they want for them. I mean, recently, Superman has announced he's no longer going to fight for the American way. And we're left saying, well, what's wrong with the American way? When we think of the American way, it's about equal justice and courage and loyalty and things like that. But they didn't like that. They said, well, he's fighting for a better tomorrow. And it's like, well, what does that mean?
Yeah.
That sounds like something that Karl Marx would come up with, and did. I mean, the people of Hong Kong were literally promised a better tomorrow by the People's Republic of China. That's how they would refer to it. It's a better tomorrow. And here we have Superman saying the same thing. And it's just typical. And the problem is it's a political agenda, and it's brought about by people who are not, like you said earlier, interested in a lifetime in comics. These people are what I call tourists. They're traveling through comics on the way to another job. Myself, all the guys and women that I work with in comics, we all got into comics with the intention of never leaving. This is what we wanted to do. But these other people, it's just part of their job history. And they're not interested in these characters. They're not interested in being stewards of these characters. They're only interested in making the news and creating controversy and unrest. And they're not interested even in sales, because comic book sales in the United States have plummeted. They don't sell enough copies to make money, and they rely on the movies and the toys and all the rest of it to make money. But it's just a sad state of affairs, which is why I was surprised when it became news that I compared American comics to manga, and manga came out on top, because I've been saying this for years. Back in the 80s and 90s when manga started to hit here, editors would talk, yeah, we're going to do more things like manga. And they thought manga meant people with big eyes and adolescent girls. And they're like, no, that the most important thing about manga is it's earnest, and they listen to their readers, and they give their readers what they want. And they make the stories complex and the characters interesting. And they make these huge sagas that take, years and years to tell, and people get into it, and they're well crafted and well drawn. That's what manga is. We can do that here, and it'll look like American comics. I mean, I didn't differ when the image explosion happened here in the 90s. I didn't want to do what they did, but I saw why it appealed to people, because it was more like manga. It was more visually driven and things like that. And, that's where it stands. And that's why, one manga comic sold more than every comic from DC and Marvel that month combined. But DC and Marvel, they don't learn from this and say, look, we got to change our way. Also, there's an awful lot of talented people in comics that aren't working at Marvel and DC anymore because they don't want them. I mean, Joe Bennett. Why would you ever let Joe Bennett go? It was stupid. Why isn't, Jerry Ordway working anymore? Why would they let Graham Nolan go off on his own? And all these guys are, they're successful on their own. They don't need Marvel and DC anymore. So thank goodness. I mean, they create their own work, but still, it's the comics that they look bad and they sell poorly, and I just wish they'd turned it around, because I love these characters.
Yeah,
and I just wish they would be more true to them.
Yeah, actually, that's it. Is the characters, the characters that you feel that you need to know more about them. And I know that anybody could say, well, yeah, but in the past there are a lot of stories. Yeah, but that's not the point. The point is that we cannot see. We are not seeing that better tomorrow.
Yes. Yeah, we've seen it tomorrow, and it's not better.
Exactly. Yeah, and do you think, in your opinion, you think this is like I don't want to sound naive, but do you think that this is like a only something temporary? Do you think it's sometimes in the future maybe it's going to be like it used to be, or not?
I really hope so. But the problem is, Marvel is owned by Disney. DC is owned by Warner Brothers. These are huge corporations. And they can't be happy that both of these comic companies lose money every year. And they don't understand that these companies need to stay vital in order to create the stuff they base the TV and movies on. They got all these TV shows. All these movies, they all came from comics. But you have to keep the comics vital and going and strong to create more of that material. Because that kind of stuff's only created in comics. The movie people can't come up with that kind of stuff, because crazy comic book people, a guy writing and a guy drawing, they're the ones that are going to come up with the nuttiest stuff, the best, the strongest stuff. I don't know if they'll turn around. My biggest fear, and what I think is going to happen, is that they'll shut down the comic companies and then just license the characters out, which Marvel's done a little bit of. So they'll just find another publisher and license them out. So that might be a good thing. That might be a bad thing. I don't know.
Well, actually, I don't know. From my point of view, yeah, you're completely correct. Obviously, about it's a double-edged weapon. It could go either way. But I believe that in that case, maybe those new guys, if that is what happens, will be worrying more about sales, because now they are paying for it.
Yeah.
And maybe they are going to say, okay, well, yeah, maybe it's not a good idea to be confronting the fans, or not giving them what they want, or saying a bunch of bad things about them if they don't like our work. That I never understood that. Well, that is another topic. But in reality, it's I believe that is something that will be better. Like you said, but it could go either way if they don't change their I don't want to say politics, because I don't know who will be in charge of those. But if they continue with this formula, it's not going to be any success, because right now people is very I want to use the word disenchanted. People is very like no comic books right now. No, I prefer my old stuff. I prefer Chuck Dixon stuff from the
well, so many people say they're just rereading the old stuff, or they're looking for old stuff they didn't read before. I mean, that's kind of sad. I mean, it's nice that they're going back and looking at older stuff, but you need to keep that. It needs to move forward. You know, comics have always rebirthed themselves over time. I mean, look at Batman from the beginning to Batman now. It's the same character, but it's so different. It's so many layers have been added, and so many complications and everything. It's a deeper, richer universe now, and they're kind of throwing that all away. It's a shame.
Yeah, that is really, really a shame. But you know what is not a shame? It's the great moment that you gave us right now, this interview. Thank you very much. I appreciate really, really much. And if you agree, maybe in the future we can have another kind of talk, a little more geeky, maybe, because I have a lot of things related to geeky things and that I would like to ask you. But really, I wanted your opinion about so many things that you very graciously have shared with us. And really, Mr. Dixon, we cannot appreciate it anymore here in ComiXmen. Thank you for your time. Also, we're going to put the links to your channel, to your YouTube channel, to the Archiving Comics. We're going to take a look at that, because it's great to have work that you say, because I remember the time, it's free. It's free and it's good. It's good. That is the most important thing. Before we go, anything that you want to say to your Mexican fans? Because believe me, you have many.
Well, I was going to say that. I mean, I always appreciate hearing from Mexican fans, because they're always so incredibly enthusiastic. And I'm not lying here. Mexican fans, particularly my 90s Batman work, are always the most enthusiastic fans that I ever hear from. I mean, they're just so supportive, and I get so many kind words. So when you said you wanted to do this show, I was like, yeah, let me talk to my Mexican fans who, wouldn't normally get to see me. And, just say thank you. Thank you for all the support over the years.
Thank to you, sir. This was great. And believe me, if you are okay with that, we'll have another chat in the future. That really is going to be a better tomorrow. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Dixon. Goodbye. Have a great night, everybody. Muchas gracias por habernos acompañado a todos. El señor Chuck Dixon. Gracias.
Thank you, Paco. Thank you.
Hasta la próxima.